What's the difference between murder and manslaughter in the state of Texas? It all comes down to your state of mind, and we're going to break it down simply. Manslaughter is essentially the reckless killing of another person. The punishment range of manslaughter is 2 to 20 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. In Texas, manslaughter is considered a second-degree felony. A good example of manslaughter are road rage cases. In these cases, it usually involves a person that gets extremely angry about traffic, about being cut off, or feeling disrespected on the roadway. Whenever these things happen, there typically are going to be really bad driving facts such as excessive speeding, weaving in and out of lanes, abruptly stopping and going throughout traffic. When you do these things, you risk hitting another person and possibly killing them. When I was a prosecutor, I actually did prosecute a case that was very similar to this. It was 8 a.m. in the morning, and this person was very upset with the traffic flow that was happening in Dallas, Texas. In this particular case, he was weaving in and out of lanes and speeding excessively in his truck. Whenever he was doing this, he ended up losing control of his vehicle, and he hit a dark stop sign and actually killed one person and broke another person's back. Even though he was not intoxicated in this particular case, and even though there was no other bad actor in this case, he was prosecuted and convicted for 10 years of manslaughter. Murder is intentionally or knowingly taking the life of another person. That is the first definition of murder here in the state of Texas. The best example of what a murder is when it is knowingly or intentionally is shooting another person and you have no reason of self-defense or any other qualified reason that is legally underneath the statute. The second definition of murder is felony murder. In this particular case, it is whenever you commit a felony offense and a person dies in the course of committing felonious behavior and someone is hurt. The best example of that is the bank robbery example. In that example, you will have several actors. One person would be a person that goes inside of the bank. The other person is the getaway driver, and the other person is there to watch the other people in the bank. Now, even though this plan is to commit aggravated robbery, because typically you will have a firearm if you're robbing a bank, but if one person in this particular example shoots and kills the security guard, that turns into felony murder, and that is a first-degree murder here in the state of Texas. The punishment range for murder is 5 to 99 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. You are also not eligible for probation if you are convicted of murder in the state of Texas. The entity in charge of whether or not you are charged with murder or manslaughter is going to be the DA's office, better known as the government. They will be in charge of deciding, and the main thing that they look at is going to be what we call mens rea, which is your mental state underneath the law. They're going to evaluate that based off of the conduct and the facts that they are presented with to see if you were either intentional, knowingly, or reckless whenever this person died. The time in which you will hear the most about a mental state is going to be during jury selection. During this particular process, it is the time in which the jury will be educated about what the law is, and so the elements will be discussed at length. The best way to describe each mental state is going to be the example of a rock thrown out of a window. In that example, if whenever you want to prove intent, you would say that if a person aims below, looks out of their window at a particular person, and drops a rock with the intent obviously of hitting that person, then that is how you would prove intent. Also, when it comes to knowingly, is that if you knowingly see with your own eyes that there are people outside of your window on a busy street and you drop a rock, the odds of someone being hit are going to be very great. That would show knowingly. And although these terms seem to be very simple, they have to be explained in that way because these things are formed simultaneously. They can form in an instant. So there does not have to be a premeditation of dropping the rock. It could be as simple as looking down and seeing people and dropping the rock, knowing that as a reasonable person, someone could be hit. That mental state was formed. In the third way, it would be the reckless element. That element will be different because that is if you live in New York City, you're aware that you live on a busy street, and yet you throw the rock outside of your window without looking. So even though you did not particularly see a person, you are aware that someone could be hurt and you consciously disregarded that risk and continuously threw the rock anyway. That is the best way to be able to describe what each mental state is. Although murder and manslaughter are popular ways in which homicides are charged, there are also other types as well that can hold you criminally responsible. The other one that you often hear about would be an intoxication manslaughter offense. In that offense, the only thing that the state would have to prove was that you were intoxicated. The most important fact about intoxication manslaughter is that you do not have to have a mens rea or mental state attached to this particular offense. What the state is going to prove is that you were in fact intoxicated. Whether that is through drugs or alcohol or a combination of both, if they are able to prove that and your intoxication caused the death of another person, you can be charged with intoxication manslaughter. That also is a second-degree felony, which is the punishment range of 2 to 20 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. The final homicide that can hold you criminally responsible in the state of Texas is going to be negligent homicide. In this particular offense, the state has to prove that you were negligent in the death of another person. To prove negligence, they have to be able to show that there was a gross deviation of the standard of care that a reasonable and normal person would have taken. The best example of negligent homicide is if a parent leaves a small child in a hot car. In Texas, the punishment range for negligent homicide is going to be a state jail felony, which carries a punishment range of 180 days and up to 2 years in a state jail facility and up to a $10,000 fine. If you are facing any type of homicide charge, please call us. We have handled all these different types of cases and we will be happy to help you. Please call 817-203-2220 or visit us at varghese.texas.com.